The night was cold and silent. In the middle of the ancient alien temple, a young alien woman sat on the floor, her hands and feet bound with silver chains. Her name was Lura, and she was the last daughter of a fallen noble clan. Her eyes were red from crying, and her long silver hair hung in messy strands across her face. She had stopped trying to fight. There was no point anymore. Her people had given her away, to buy peace, to end a war they could not win. Around her, the temple's tall walls glowed with strange blue lights. Alien guards stood in the shadows watching her. They whispered cruel words. Poor bride, one of them laughed softly. She thought she would marry a hero. Instead, she'll serve a monster. Lura closed her eyes. She wished she could disappear. Her heart hurt too much to even speak. The air smelled of metal and rain, and outside, thunder rolled over the mountains. In front of her, a long table was filled with gifts for the coming wedding, gold plates, strange glowing stones, and a red robe that she would be forced to wear before the warlord. That robe, she knew, would be the last thing she ever wore as a free woman. She had tried to escape once, 3 nights ago. They had caught her. The guard captain had beaten her and said coldly, "The next time you try, I will break your wings." Lura had wings, small, soft ones, now folded and bruised against her back. They were useless now, too weak to fly, just like her spirit. She whispered to herself, "No one will come for me." Her voice echoed faintly in the empty hall. Far away, thunder struck again. But this time it did not sound like thunder. It was deeper, louder, like a ship entering the atmosphere. The guards turned to the window, confused. "What was that?" one of them muttered. "Probably another storm," another replied. But Lura felt something. A strange vibration under the floor. It wasn't nature, it was technology. Something was landing. Suddenly, the temple lights flickered. The guards grabbed their weapons. The air grew heavy, filled with static. One shouted, "Intruder alert!" But before he could move, a loud crash shook the temple doors. The ancient gates burst open in a shower of sparks and dust. From the smoke stepped a figure, tall, strong, wearing a damaged exosuit. His helmet visor glowed dim blue, covered in ash. He looked human, but that was impossible. The guards froze in shock. Humans were myths. They had vanished centuries ago, destroyed in wars no one remembered clearly. To see one alive, it was like seeing a ghost from another time. The man looked around slowly, scanning the temple. His armor hissed softly as he took a step forward. "I'm picking up a distress signal," he said through his helmet. "Who sent it?" No one answered. The guards lifted their rifles. "You are trespassing on sacred ground," one shouted. The man didn't move. His voice was calm but deep. "Then explain why someone is crying here." Lura stared at him, too scared to speak. She thought she was dreaming. But when his eyes met hers, her breath caught. His eyes weren't cold or cruel, they were human eyes. Warm, focused, full of something she hadn't seen in years. Compassion, the guards opened fire. Bolts of blue energy flew across the hall. The man moved fast, rolling, dodging, returning fire with a pulse weapon built into his suit. In seconds, 3 guards were down and the rest ran for cover. Lura pressed herself against the wall, shaking. The fight ended as quickly as it began. Smoke filled the room. The man turned toward her. Slowly, he reached for his helmet and took it off. Underneath, he had short brown hair, a tired face, and eyes that had seen too much war. He stepped closer and said softly, "Don't be afraid." "I'm not here to hurt you," she didn't reply. Her throat was dry, her hands trembling in her chains. He looked at them and frowned. "Who did this to you?" Lura looked down and whispered, "They sold me." To him. "Who?" he asked. "The warlord." "My wedding begins at sunrise." The man clenched his fists. "Not if I can help it." Behind him, alarms began to ring throughout the temple. Red lights flashed. The human turned quickly toward the sound. More soldiers were coming. He looked back at Lura. "I'll come back for you," he said firmly. "I promise." Then he ran into the smoke, his armor glowing faintly as he disappeared into the hallways. Lura sat there, her heart beating fast. For the first time in years, something warm moved inside her chest. "Hope," she whispered, almost in disbelief. "A human. He's real." Outside, lightning split the sky in half and rain began to fall over the temple. The guards shouted orders and the warlord's ships roared overhead. But deep inside, Lura smiled weakly through her tears. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. The alarm screamed through the ancient temple as red warning lights flashed across the dark stone walls. Lura sat frozen in her corner, still chained, her mind spinning with fear and confusion. A human here? She had heard stories of them as a child, beings of courage, fire, and impossible will. But those were old tales, bedtime stories to comfort frightened children. Yet now she had seen one with her own eyes. Outside, rain poured over the mountains, and thunder rolled like the growl of an angry god. Soldiers ran through the corridors, shouting orders, searching every room for the intruder. Their boots echoed through the hall as they formed tight patrols. In the chaos, the human, Captain Ryan Holt, moved like a ghost through the shadows. His armor was scratched and dented from the crash landing, but his focus was sharp. He had seen the bound alien woman, and her eyes haunted him. That wasn't the distress signal he had come for, but he knew now why his ship had pulled him here. Someone needed saving. His AI companion Nova spoke through his earpiece, voice calm and soft. Captain, enemy heat signatures detected, 30 soldiers ahead. You are outnumbered. I know, Ryan whispered, crouching behind a fallen column, but I can't leave her. He peeked around the corner and saw the alien guards spreading out, weapons ready. Their leader barked an order. Find the human. The warlord wants his head. Ryan checked his pulse rifle, the last charge glowing faintly blue. Let's make it count, he muttered. Then with one deep breath he dashed forward. The guards barely had time to react. He moved fast, rolling behind cover, firing short bursts that hit with perfect aim. Sparks filled the air as stone cracked and weapons exploded. Within seconds, half of them were down. The rest ran for backup. Lura could hear the fight from her corner. She pressed her hands against the cold floor, heart racing. She didn't know why, but she wanted the human to live. She wanted him to come back. Then the heavy doors burst open again, and there he was. His armor was scorched, his breathing heavy, but his eyes still calm and steady. I told you I'd come back, he said. Lura stared at him, unable to speak. He knelt beside her and touched the metal cuffs. Hold still. With a flick of his wrist, a plasma cutter hummed to life. The blue light reflected in her eyes as the chains melted away. The sound was sharp and beautiful, the sound of freedom. When the last chain fell, Lura almost couldn't believe it. She rubbed her wrists and whispered, You don't even know me. Ryan looked at her, half smiling. Don't have to. You needed help. Before she could answer, a voice boomed through the speakers above, deep, cruel, and full of power. Human, it said. You dare interfere in my house? Lura froze. The warlord Chiron had awakened. His image appeared on a large screen above the temple hall, tall, armored, his red eyes burning with rage. You will not leave this place alive, he growled. My soldiers are already surrounding you. Ryan didn't flinch. Then tell them to hurry, he said flatly and shot the screen, shattering it. He turned to Lura. We're getting out of here. Can you walk? She nodded weakly, her legs trembling. Yes, I think so. Good, he said. Stay close. They ran through the temple corridors as alarms echoed everywhere. Ryan's suit shield flickered, absorbing a few stray blasts. He guided her down a stairwell that led to a hidden passage beneath the temple. The air there was damp and smelled of old dust. Lura whispered, Why are you doing this? You don't even know who I am. Ryan slowed, glancing back at her. Because someone once saved me when I thought no one cared, he said. And I made a promise to never walk away when someone's in chains. His words stayed in her mind long after they left his mouth. As they reached the tunnel exit, Ryan stopped suddenly. Outside, floodlights lit the courtyard. Dozens of soldiers were waiting. A large shuttle hovered overhead, its cannons aimed at the door. Lura gasped. They've surrounded us. Ryan's eyes darted around quickly. No. They think they have. He tapped the side of his helmet. Nova, trigger the diversion. Confirmed, the AI replied. A second later, a huge explosion lit the eastern wall of the temple. The soldiers turned their heads, shouting in panic. Ryan grabbed Lura's hand and sprinted toward the opposite side, using the chaos as cover. Blaster bolts flew past them. Lura stumbled, but Ryan caught her and pulled her close. Almost there, he shouted over the noise. They dove behind a stone arch as his ship, a small black drop pod, descended through the smoke. The rear hatch opened with a hiss. Ryan pushed her inside first, then jumped in behind her. Hold on tight, he said. This is going to be rough. As the ship shot into the stormy night sky, Lura clung to the seat, eyes wide with terror and wonder. She looked out the window as the burning temple faded below. For the first time in her life, she was leaving that cursed place. And for the first time, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, this human could change her fate. The sky was a sea of darkness and thunder. The small human dropship cut through heavy rain, shaking with every bolt of lightning. Inside, Lura sat strapped into a seat, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Across from her, Captain Ryan Holt worked the controls with steady hands. The ship was old and damaged from the crash, and warning lights blinked red across the panel. "Engines overheating," his AI, Nova, reported calmly. "Yeah, I can see that," Ryan muttered. He pulled a lever, forcing the ship lower through the storm clouds. Behind them, the warlord's fighters were already in pursuit. Red beams sliced through the rain, lighting up the clouds. The human ship shook as plasma blasts exploded close by. Lura gasped, gripping her seat straps tight. "They're right behind us!" she shouted. Ryan didn't look back. "I know. But they won't be for long." He turned sharply, diving the ship toward a canyon below. The storm howled around them, wind battering the hull like angry fists. Lura's wings trembled from fear. The temple, the chains, her hopeless nights, it all flashed before her eyes. Now she was free, yet flying straight into another kind of death. Suddenly, one of the enemy fighters fired a missile. The radar screamed. "Brace!" Ryan yelled. The ship jolted as the explosion hit near the rear engines. Alarms blared louder. Sparks flew across the cockpit. "Engine 2 offline," Nova warned. "Of course it is," Ryan gritted, trying to stabilize the ship. He glanced at Lura, her face pale, her eyes wide. "We can't outrun them like this. We need to hide." He guided the ship lower until it skimmed the stormy ground. Through the rain, he spotted a rocky cliff with a narrow opening. A cave. "That'll do," he said. With one final burst of thrust, he forced the ship inside the cavern. Metal scraped against stone, and the craft came to a rough stop, smoke filling the air. Silence followed, broken only by the soft hiss of cooling metal and the distant thunder outside. Ryan stood slowly, his armor dented, his expression calm but tired. "We're safe. For now." Lura unbuckled her seat, her hands still trembling. She could barely believe what had just happened. "You risked your life for me," she said quietly. Ryan shrugged. "Would have done the same for anyone." She frowned. "No one ever did for me." He looked at her then, really looked. The soft silver glow of her skin, the faint light in her eyes, the marks of the chain still red around her wrists. She looked fragile, but her gaze was strong. He nodded. "Then maybe it's time someone did." Lura looked down, unsure what to say. The last time someone spoke kindly to her, she was a child. Her people only knew trade, war, and silence. Compassion was something from the past. Ryan opened a panel and pulled out a small toolkit. "We'll need to fix the ship before they find us," he said, kneeling by the smoking engine. Lura stood there watching him work. "You humans. You were supposed to be gone. Everyone says your kind vanished long ago." He didn't stop working. "Not all of us. Some of us just went too far from home." The sound of rain echoed through the cave mouth. For a while they spoke little. Ryan focused on repairs while Lura gathered her courage to ask, "Why did you come here to this world?" "Wasn't by choice," Ryan said. "I picked up a distress signal while passing the outer rim. Thought it was a ship in trouble. Turns out it was you," Lura blinked. "I didn't send any signal." He stopped and looked at her. "Then who did?" The question hung in the air like a shadow. Outside, thunder rolled again. Something didn't feel right. Ryan closed the toolkit and sat down beside her. "We'll find out later. For now we rest. You need it." She shook her head. "I can't sleep. They'll come for me." He looked toward the cave entrance. "Let them try." Lura smiled faintly for the first time in years. "You talk like you can fight the whole galaxy." He grinned. "Only the parts that deserve it." The storm outside began to calm, but inside the cave both of them sat quietly. Two strangers from different worlds, bound by the same danger. Lura wrapped her arms around herself, feeling strange warmth in her chest. She didn't understand it yet, but something inside her told her this human wasn't just another wanderer. He was a man who changed fates. As she watched him fix his broken armor, she whispered softly, almost to herself, maybe the stories were true after all. Humans never run from darkness. Ryan glanced at her, hearing the whisper but saying nothing. He just smiled quietly, his eyes soft. Outside the cave, the storm faded into mist. But far above, alien search drones circled the mountains, scanning for any trace of them. The hunt had only just begun. Morning came slowly over the storm-torn mountains. The air outside the cave was cold and misty, the ground wet from last night's rain. Inside, the small ship rested in silence, half hidden among the rocks. Lura woke first. She sat quietly, listening to the soft hum of the ship's systems. For a moment, she thought it had all been a dream. The human, the escape, the fire. But when she turned her head, she saw him there. Captain Ryan Holt was asleep on the cold floor, his jacket over his shoulders, his weapon still in his hand. Even while resting, he looked ready to fight. Lura stood and looked at him with quiet curiosity. She had never seen a human before, and everything about him felt strange yet familiar. He was different from her people, rougher, heavier. But there was something peaceful about him, something honest. She touched the small scars on her wrists where the chains had been. Her heart hurt remembering the temple, the laughter of the guards, the hopeless nights. But then she looked at Ryan and whispered to herself, "He came for me." Outside, the sound of engines broke the morning silence. Lura froze. Through the mist, dark shapes appeared in the sky, search drones glowing red. They were scanning the area. Ryan opened his eyes instantly. He sat up, his soldier instincts sharp. "They found us," he said. Nova's voice echoed softly through his earpiece. "Captain, 6 drones approaching from the north. Larger ships are moving in orbit." Ryan grabbed his rifle. "We have to move now." Lura stepped back, panic rising. "They'll catch us again. You don't know what they'll do to you if they see a human." Ryan stopped her with a calm hand gesture. "They'll have to catch me first." He ran to the ship's console, checking the systems. "Engines are still weak," he muttered. "We can't fly far. Then what will we do?" she asked. He glanced at her. "We hide, fight, and move. One step at a time." He handed her a small cloak from his pack. "Put this on. It'll mask your heat signature." She hesitated, holding the rough human fabric. "Why are you helping me this much?" Ryan didn't answer right away. He looked out toward the misty horizon and said quietly, "Because someone should have helped you long ago." They left the cave and moved through the mountain trails. The fog gave them cover, but the sound of the drones grew louder. Lura walked close behind Ryan, watching how carefully he moved, always alert, always scanning, every step chosen with care. Then a beam of red light swept across the ground beside them. Ryan pushed her down behind a rock just in time. A drone hovered overhead, scanning. He whispered, "Don't move." They waited in silence, hearts beating fast. The drone drifted closer, its red eye glowing brighter. Ryan aimed his rifle slowly. One clean shot. The drone exploded in a burst of sparks, but the explosion gave away their position. Nova warned, "More inbound. 3 minutes until contact." Ryan cursed under his breath. "We need a distraction." He turned to Lura. "Can you climb?" She blinked. "What?" "Up there." He pointed to a narrow ridge above them. "If you reach that ledge, you'll see a small cave. Hide there until I call." "And you?" she asked, frightened. "I'll lead them away." Lura shook her head. "No, they'll kill you." Ryan gave a small grin. "They've been trying to do that for years." Before she could stop him, he ran down the slope, firing at the drones to draw them in. The sound of gunfire echoed through the valley. Lura climbed the rocks with trembling hands, watching him from above as he fought alone. His armor flashed under the morning light, and each shot he fired hit perfectly. She could hear the warlord soldiers shouting through their radios, "The human is here! Surround him!" Ryan ducked behind cover, firing back. He moved like someone who had done this 1,000 times, but there were too many of them. Plasma fire rained down, hitting the ground around him. Lura's chest tightened. She couldn't just watch. Something deep inside her screamed to move. She spread her bruised wings and glided down toward him, ignoring the pain. When Ryan turned, he saw her land beside him. "What are you doing here?" he shouted. "Helping," she said, grabbing one of the fallen soldier's weapons. Ryan blinked in surprise as she fired, clumsily but brave. Together they fought side by side, driving back the soldiers until the last drone fell burning into the trees. When silence returned, Ryan looked at her with a faint smile. "You disobey orders fast." She smiled weakly, her hands shaking. "You said we fight together, right?" He laughed softly. "Yeah, we do." Above them, thunder rolled again. The warlord's voice came through the soldiers' comms. Keep hunting. I want them alive. Ryan looked up at the sky. He won't stop, he said quietly. Lura's voice was soft but certain. Then neither will we. They turned toward the forest beyond the cliffs, walking together into the mist, no longer just an alien bride and a lost human soldier, but two survivors bound by fate, ready for whatever the galaxy sent next. The forest was quiet now. Only the sound of wind passing through glowing alien trees filled the air. The light from the twin moons painted silver shadows across the leaves. Ryan and Lura had walked for hours after escaping the mountains, their bodies sore, their minds heavy with thoughts of what came next. They finally reached an old outpost, a small rebel base built into the side of a canyon. Its walls were patched with rusted metal, and smoke rose gently from the vents above. Ryan approached carefully, keeping his rifle ready. When a figure appeared from the shadows, Ryan raised his weapon, but the stranger lifted both hands and smiled. Easy, human. We're not with the warlord. Ryan hesitated. The man looked tired and thin, his uniform marked with old rebel symbols. Who are you? Ryan asked. Name's Tarek, the man said. You're lucky. Not many make it this far alive. The warlord's men are crawling all over this sector. Ryan glanced back at Lura. She looked nervous, her wings folded close. We just need repairs and supplies, Ryan said. Tarek nodded slowly. You'll find both here. Come inside before someone spots you. They followed him through a narrow metal corridor that led into a dim room filled with old machines, crates, and glowing holo maps. Dozens of alien rebels worked silently, their faces hard and tired. Ryan placed his weapon on the table. We were attacked. My ship's damaged. I need a power cell and a stabilizer. Tarek studied him. A human helping an alien bride? That's not something you see every day. Ryan ignored the comment. We don't have time for stories. Lura stood close behind him, feeling everyone's eyes on her. Some of the rebels whispered. She could hear the words warlord's bride and traitor among them. She lowered her head, feeling the old shame return. Tarek noticed. You don't have to hide here, he said gently. The warlord has hurt us all. If you escaped him, you're one of us now. Lura gave a small nod. Thank you, she whispered. The rebels gave them food and a place to rest. For the first time in days, Lura ate warm soup and sat near a fire. Ryan stayed awake, fixing his armor, always watching the door. His instincts wouldn't let him relax. Late that night, Tarek entered the room again, holding a small device. You asked for a power cell, he said, smiling. This should help you fly again. Ryan took it with a nod. Thanks. But something in Tarek's smile didn't feel right. It was too calm, too confident. As Ryan installed the part into his ship, Nova's voice came softly through his helmet. Captain, I am detecting an unknown signal. Ryan froze. What kind of signal? A beacon. Someone transmitted your coordinates 5 minutes ago. Ryan's blood ran cold. He turned sharply toward the door, but it was too late. The sirens outside began to scream. Lura jumped to her feet. What's happening? Ryan grabbed his weapon. We've been betrayed. Through the narrow hallway, heavy footsteps approached, the metallic stomp of the warlord's soldiers. Tarek appeared again, his smile gone. I'm sorry, human, he said quietly. They offered us freedom in exchange for you. You don't understand what it's like living under his rule. Ryan glared at him. Freedom bought with betrayal isn't freedom. He pulled Lura behind him as the wall exploded inward, sending fire and debris through the air. Soldiers poured into the outpost, shouting orders. The fight was sudden and brutal. Ryan fired back, his rifle glowing bright, each shot hitting true. The rebels scattered, caught between fear and guilt. Lura's heart raced. We have to go. Ryan nodded. To the ship. They ran through the smoke-filled halls. Explosions rocked the outpost as soldiers fired from every direction. Ryan covered Lura with his armor, taking hits that scorched his shoulder plate, but he didn't slow down. When they reached the landing bay, the ship stood waiting, its lights flickering, engines humming weakly. Ryan opened the hatch and pushed Lura inside. Go, strap in. She hesitated. What about you? I'm right behind you, he said. He turned and threw a grenade toward the door just as more soldiers entered. The blast sent metal flying, giving him seconds to jump aboard. He hit the controls and the ship lifted off. Plasma bolts followed them into the sky. The entire canyon below lit up as the outpost exploded behind them. Lura looked out the window, her eyes wide with shock. They were supposed to help us. Ryan's voice was calm but heavy. Desperation makes people do terrible things. Nova spoke from the console. Captain, multiple ships are pursuing. We can't take much more damage. Then we don't get hit, Ryan said firmly, pulling the ship higher into the night. Lura looked at him, her voice shaking. You risk everything for me, even when everyone turns against us. Ryan gave a tired smile. That's what humans do. We keep going even when everything's falling apart. Outside, lightning flashed again as enemy fighters closed in. But Lura's fear was gone now. She reached for his arm, her voice steady. Then I'll fight beside you this time. Ryan looked at her, eyes soft but proud. Good, he said. Because this isn't over yet. The ship vanished into the clouds, chased by fire and thunder. Two souls defying an empire. The ship drifted through endless clouds of silver mist. The engines wheezed and crackled, running on the last bit of power. Ryan sat in the pilot's seat, hands tight on the controls, eyes half open from exhaustion. Every muscle in his body ached, every breath burned, but he refused to stop. Lura sat beside him, her hands trembling slightly. The light from the dashboard glowed on her face, showing both fear and strength. Outside, the stars began to fade into the dark void of space. The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the failing engine. Nova's calm voice filled the air. Captain, fuel reserves are at 1%. We must land soon. Ryan nodded slowly. Find me anything with atmosphere. After a moment, Nova replied, there's a planet nearby. Oxygen, water, no known life signs. It might be safe. Ryan exhaled. Plot the course. The ship entered the planet's thin atmosphere, rattling as it broke through layers of violet clouds. Below stretched wide green plains dotted with shining lakes. It looked untouched, peaceful. Ryan smiled faintly. Perfect. They landed near a quiet hill. Smoke rose from the engine, but the ship held together. Ryan powered everything down. We're safe for now, he said softly. Lura stepped out first. The air was warm and clean, smelling like rain and new life. She looked around in wonder. It's beautiful, she whispered. Ryan followed her, limping slightly from an old wound. Yeah, he said, and quiet. No soldiers. No warlord. Just air and light. They built a small camp beside the ship. Ryan repaired what he could while Lura gathered clean water from a nearby stream. For the first time in her life, she felt free. No chains, no guards, no walls. She touched her wrists again, remembering the pain that once lived there, and smiled. That night, they sat by a small fire. The stars above them were strange and bright, painting the sky in colors Lura had never seen before. She looked at Ryan through the flickering light. You humans, you keep fighting even when there's no hope. Why? Ryan stared at the fire. Because we learned the hard way that hope is never gone. You just have to keep it alive long enough for someone else to see it. Lura tilted her head. Someone else like me? He smiled softly. Exactly, she looked down, her voice quiet. You've risked everything for me and I still don't understand why. Ryan turned toward her, his face calm but tired. When I saw you in that temple, I saw someone who had already lost everything, and still hadn't given up. That kind of strength deserves a second chance. Lura's eyes filled with emotion. No one had ever said such words to her before. I never knew humans could care this much, she whispered. Ryan chuckled lightly. We're complicated creatures. We destroy, but we also protect, sometimes both in the same breath. The fire crackled softly between them. For the first time since her capture, Lura laughed, a small, fragile sound but real. Suddenly, Nova's voice cut through the peace. Captain, incoming signal detected. It's faint but heading this way. Unknown origin. Ryan stood quickly, all calm gone. How long until they reach orbit? Minutes. Lura's heart dropped. It's him, the warlord. He found us. Ryan's jaw tightened. Then we fight. He ran to the ship, powering the defense shields. Sparks danced across the panels as he tried to reroute power from the engines. Nova, charge the rail cannon. Power insufficient, the AI replied. I suggest evacuation. Not happening, Ryan snapped. We make our stand here. Lura grabbed his arm. You'll die if you stay. Ryan looked at her, his eyes steady. If running means leaving you to be captured again, then I'd rather die standing. Lura felt her chest ache. She couldn't lose him, not now. Then I'll fight too, she said firmly. Ryan blinked. You sure about that? She nodded, lifting a salvaged plasma rifle. You said I have strength. Time to prove it. Outside, the sky began to glow red. The warlords' ships entered the atmosphere, roaring like monsters. The ground trembled beneath their engines. Ryan looked at her one last time. Whatever happens, remember this, you were never a slave. You were always free. You just needed someone to remind you. Laura's eyes shined with tears. And you were that someone. The first blast hit near the hill, shaking the ground. Dust and smoke filled the air. Ryan took position beside her. Two different beings, one human, one alien, ready to face a galaxy that wanted them dead. As enemy troops began to descend, Laura whispered softly, "If this is the end, at least it's mine to choose." Ryan smiled faintly. "No, this is just the beginning." They raised their weapons together as the night burned bright with fire and thunder, ready to fight for the one thing both had lost and found again. Freedom. The sky was burning red. The air shook with the roar of engines as the warlords' ships descended over the green plains. Lightning flashed across the clouds and dust rose from the ground like smoke. Ryan Holt stood beside Laura, both ready, both silent. The moment had come. Ryan checked his weapon, the power reading blinking low. His armor was cracked, one arm bleeding under the sleeve. Still, he smiled faintly. "You ready for this?" Laura nodded. Her silver eyes glowed in the stormlight. "I was born ready. I just forgot until you reminded me." The first dropships landed near the hill. Dozens of armored soldiers stormed out, weapons raised. Behind them floated the warlord's command cruiser, a black giant that blocked the sun. Its symbol, a burning claw, shone on the side. Through the loudspeakers came his voice, deep and cruel. "Human, I will tear your world apart for this insult. Give me the bride, and I may let you live." Ryan's voice came back cold and clear. "You'll never touch her again." He aimed his rifle and fired. The first wave of soldiers fell instantly. Then the battle began. Explosions tore through the plains. Laura moved with quick grace, firing the plasma rifle Ryan had given her. She wasn't trained, but her aim was strong, her courage stronger. Ryan fought beside her, his every movement sharp and focused. Together they pushed back wave after wave, but the enemy kept coming. The ground trembled as a large mech walker approached, firing heavy cannons. The shockwave threw Laura to the ground. Ryan ran to her, blocking a blast with his armor shield. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. "I can fight." "Not if you're dead," he said, helping her stand. Nova's voice broke through the chaos. "Captain, the warlord's ship is powering its main cannon. Impact in 60 seconds, Ryan looked up. The cruiser's underbelly glowed bright red, ready to fire. "That'll destroy the entire valley," he said. Laura's eyes widened. "We can't stop that kind of power." Ryan thought fast. "Maybe we don't have to stop it, we just have to redirect it." He ran back to the ship and started typing on the control pad. "Nova, linked to their targeting system. Attempting connection," the AI replied. "Security level is high." "Bypass it," Ryan ordered. Laura followed him inside, watching the screens flash with alien code. "What are you doing?" "If we reroute the cannon's signal, we can make it fire at their own ship." She stared at him. "That's suicide." He looked back at her and smiled. "Only if it fails," the warlord's voice thundered again. "You can't win, human. This planet will be your grave." Ryan ignored him, hands flying across the controls. Sweat dripped down his face. Nova's voice grew urgent. "Link established. But someone must stay to hold the connection manually." Ryan's hands froze for a second. He knew what that meant. Laura saw his face and shook her head. "No, you're not staying." "I have to," he said quietly. "If I leave, the signal will break." "Then I'll stay," she said firmly. He reached out and touched her shoulder. "No, Laura, you have a future. I'm just a soldier who lost his—" Her voice trembled. "You gave me freedom. Don't take it away from yourself." Ryan smiled softly. "Freedom isn't just for me. It's for everyone who believes in something better. You'll carry that now." Outside, the cruiser's cannon began to glow brighter, ready to fire. Nova's countdown echoed through the ship. 10 seconds to discharge. Ryan leaned close to Laura. "When I say go, you run to the escape pod. Don't look back." Tears filled her eyes. "I won't leave you." "You will," he said gently. "Because I told you once, you're stronger than you think." She pressed her forehead to his, their worlds. human and alien, meeting for one last second of peace. Then he whispered, "Go." Lura ran, crying as the ship trembled. Ryan took a deep breath and locked the manual controls. The screen flashed, redirecting energy. Target locked, the cannon fired. A beam of red light tore through the sky, hitting the warlord's own cruiser. The explosion was blinding, lighting up the entire planet like a second sun. The shockwave threw the escape pod far into the forest. Inside, Lura screamed his name, but no voice came back. When the smoke cleared, the cruiser was gone, burned to ashes. The warlord and his army were destroyed. Days later, Lura stood on the same hill alone. The land was quiet again. The ship was gone, but the sky seemed brighter. She looked up and whispered, "You kept your promise, Ryan Holt. You gave me freedom." A soft breeze passed through her hair, almost like a whisper answering back. And from that day, stories spread across the stars. Stories of the last human who stood against a tyrant and changed the galaxy. Some called him a legend. Others said he never died, that his spirit still watches from the stars. But for Lura, he was not a legend. He was the human who chose hope over fear, and in doing so changed everything.